Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of the Renewables Podcast. And today we're going to talk about all things bird protection. But before I introduce our guest, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Fresh off the boat over the Irish Sea. So fresh as a daisy this morning, nice relaxed full sleep while it was gently drifting away.
Yeah.
No storms.
Oh, that's good. Well, good job, Captain Birdseye's managed to get over here. But we've got Elaine here from PestFix. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Well, thanks very much for coming. And we're going to go into a bit of a deep dive into bird protection and a bit about PestFix, and really start us off from the beginning, really. And where did it all begin with PestFix? A bit of background about the company.
Okay, so PestFix started, two brothers. One had his own bird control business, and the other was a software developer, website designer. And Dan was at a point of, we can make a lot more money rather than me climbing around on a roof if I'm selling the products. Also, you can sell products from a nice warm office rather than being on a roof, up a ladder and so forth. And as you get older, that becomes a bit more difficult. So their dad and the two brothers set up PestFix, and Matt completely built the website and all of our administration system. That's all completely bespoke, built by one brother. And we were just selling bird control products to begin with. Predominantly, as that was it, Dan's area of expertise, seagull, but working into pigeons and so forth. And then over time, we became a full service company. So we provide all manner of pest control and I'll say hygiene products, with disinfectants and stuff like that. We don't do any installations. That would put us at a direct competition with our customers, and you've got conflict of interest there. How somebody can say, "Oh, can you help me quote for this job?" Oh, God, are they going to come in and undercut me? No, we're never going to do that. So we don't do any work.
Yeah,
makes that a bit lazy.
You don't realise how relevant that is in a minute, Elaine. We're up against that in that the solar battery market. We're up against that with manufacturers coming into the installation marketplace. And it's been a very tricky area for us to navigate it because we're obviously backing those products, installing them, and sometimes we're going head to head with the manufacturer. So, why would you want to go up onto the roof and actually fit it if you can make enough money selling it? That's good to hear.
We're going to interrupt today's show to talk about a new product from Proteus, the sponsors of our lovely little home here on the Renewables Podcast. And this is a Type B RCBO in single module format, and this is a super exciting development, I think, in the world of switchgear for us as installers. This is 10 kA rated and bi-directional with all the right markings and logos on. I'm going to pass this over to my co-host Sam for him to have a look at. See what you make of that, mate.
Yeah, it's I actually dug out in the unit where it's just next door to where we sat now, an older Proteus RCBO. This is a Type A and it's a 6 kA one. And the difference in the size is next to nothing. So this is the older one here, and this is the new one. So it's basically the same size, but this is a Type B, and we know there's a lot more that goes into a Type B RCBO than does a Type AC. So it just shows the progression there that Proteus are on, and trying to save us space in these DBs by literally having next to no height difference on the two products.
I know, the Type B normally would be a couple of modules wide at least, probably more, and they've got it all into one single space is incredible. And I know from speaking with a contractor over on DMs who'd had his MCS assessment recently, was saying that the assessor had said he should have a Type B RCBO feeding into his battery storage system, which is outdoors, which is interesting. So I think we're going to see the growth in application of these things, and it's just nice to see the range of stuff Proteus have got out there for us as installers. And there'll be a link in the description alongside wherever you're watching or listening to this to go off and check that out. Let's jump back to the chat.
So over time, the company grew. And before I started there, I've been there just over 8 years. Before I started there, they spotted a need for protection under solar panels. And we came up with we called it SolarFix. Everything that's a PestFix product has got the word fix in it. So Rodent Fix deals with rodents. SolarFix deals with solar. And we came up with a sort of mesh and clip system. And the first lot of clips that we used to sell, we sold them quite profitably, were actually designed and patented by one of the brothers, Matt. They used to be made in the unit next to us, totally separate company, but they used to do the plastic moulding for us. We'd buy them from next door, and then we sold those. And it was a very popular product, and it worked really, really well. And then again, the market got busier and busier, and they were a very, very good quality product. Being made in the UK was extremely expensive. And don't get me wrong, the guy next door could have kept up with the capacity, but we were actually then starting to look at alternative sources for our mesh, because the amount we started to sell was just going up and up. And we kind of started spotting there's a huge range of solar installers there. Let's start targeting them. So we went elsewhere looking for mesh, and we started then selling the black PVC coated mesh. We still sell regular galvanised, we still sell stainless steel if you want that, and in some cases that's a better fit. And we still sell our original clips. They're extortionately expensive. We came up with a slightly cheaper version of them, which is these. So our original ones were about £100 for a pack of 60. These are about 27, I think. Don't quote me on that. Correct at time of filming. And these are the ones that hook on under the metal frames. Because when we started doing it, most of the solar panels on the market had a metal frame that clipped underneath, that went through the mesh, and then that just pushed on all the way down. And nothing was going to take that off. And it was a really good fix. But then we were getting more and more of what I call TV style ones, where it looks like your telly, and there's nothing to hook onto underneath. And we were getting more and more of those. And of course, what some people were doing was drilling into the side of the solar panels.
Is that really a thing? So this predates my time in the industry, I think.
Self-tappers into the side of the panels, and
that it just sets my teeth on edge thinking about it. And the best we could offer was a sort of metal clip that went round the mesh and you could glue on. And manufacturers were saying, "Oh no, that invalidates warranty. A bit of glue does not invalidate warranty, but that's the way you want to go. That's the way you want to go." So we then started looking at the clips that went just around the panel. So we've got them here. These were the first ones we came up with. These are the speed clips. They don't give such a good grip. So all that means is you use more of them. Those you put on every half a metre. These are about 20 centimetres. But they're so quick to put on. It really doesn't make much difference in your overall time of installation. And they've got the smooth back. And then you've got the critter clips, which look like little critters. And they've got the groove there, so the mesh sits in that part there. So you've got a really snug fit, and your mesh is right up against the panel, so there's no wiggle room, so they're not going to come off. So
they're the ones we use. Those ones, I've not seen the prior versions. We're really new. A couple of years we've been in the industry, and we were using a different product to yours for that and had some problems. And it's from speaking with Sam and Mike from East Renewables that brought us towards this
I'll just
option.
grab them. I'll just hold them to the camera just for anyone that's not seen it. I might turn that aircon off as well, because
that's the original. That's the critter clip. There was also a competitor bought these, and we sell these as well. So these are good for.
So that's the original one there. So we've got a nut that basically pushes on to the stick, and then that's a bit like a cable tie where you can't get it off after that's been put in. So the mesh would go there. That hooks onto the back of the panel, and then the mesh is held in place by that. And then what was this? The next development?
That's the speed clip.
So that's the speed clip. So we use these in my company a lot. So that's where it basically hooks onto the frame of the panel, and the mesh sits in between the panel and this clip to hold it in place. And then this is probably the next kind of evolution. This was the critter clip. And that's where the mesh sits in those grooves, so you get a tighter fix between the panel and the clip.
Does that mean you don't need so many of those ones then?
No, they're still
every
every 20 centimetres.
Okay.
There is also this one, which is another one we sell. A competitor started selling these, which worked in, we call these pin and disc. But this has got, and that is a single use. This one it's got a retaining nut, and the whole thing screws on and off. So if you think you're going to be going back for some reason, maintenance or whatever, I don't know what you do under your solar panel, you can put these on, screw that in, and it means you can take it on and off if you need to. Again, they're about the same price, but just that screwing these on however many times, it's going to be time consuming. But if you think you're going to be going back and working under a panel, then that's a useful thing to have.
Yeah, I've got to admit, my guys have got PTSD from spinning these on like that. And like, so when we started using the sort of this style one,
Yeah.
it was like you just reinvented the wheel. It was unbelievable. So that's the one that we've fitted a lot of, and I think definitely were the ones from you. Cause I can feel these threads are a lot better, but some of the ones that we've had, the threads are just knackered on them, and you couldn't get the nut onto it, and it basically just wouldn't spin. And also, one thing we had with these as well is the little bit where it's supposed to be molded. It's okay if you're doing 10 or 15 of them. If you've got 100 of them to do, just like you feel that little bit of
Because
velocity.
you've got the pin poking out, you can't put the tool onto your drill bit.
That's it. And it's a plastic thread as well, so you don't want to go too.
It up anyhow.
Yeah. So for me, these are the ones to go for. Like when we started using these, it was just. It was so good. You didn't have that transition either.
We've missed all that hard work.
You should go back to fitting these
No, I'm all
first.
for it. I think these innovations are fantastic, and we did go through a bit of pain with another brand's bird protection, and my guys fitting that. It took so long. It's fiddly. It didn't always stay where it should be either. So when we swapped to using the mesh, it's probably only 6 months ago, for them. It's like night and day. They can bed a system so quickly.
That's the thing. You have to look when you're doing your installation. Where are your costs? And then obviously you've got your main materials, the panels, your inverters, and all of that sort of thing. But your other big thing is going to be your labour and your access.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the longer you're paying for your scaffolding, that's going to be costing more money. But the longer you've got a guy up on a roof, if you can do 3 jobs a day as opposed to 2 jobs a day, that's you're going to be quids in. So
yeah, it's the confidence of knowing it's going to stay there as well.
Yes.
Because the issue we'd have is if the scaff's down and then a bit of the bird guard's fallen out.
Yeah.
That defeats the whole object. The scaff's got to go back up, or a temporary one anyway.
I've had that with. I know I'm not going to name the system because I don't want to go to court or anything, but I know the system that you're talking about, and we've had it, and it was on a terraced row of houses, and it was a really high part of the building, and the really high part of the building, the back of the panels, you could see it from it was like a dormer window, and you could see it. You could see pigeons going underneath it. And the bird protection just pushed off, and they were nesting underneath it. And we went back to fit some more panels on the top of this roof, and so the scaffolding had to pass that other roof. So we stripped out the system that was on there before, bird protection system, and changed it for the mesh and the speed clips and everything, because it's a low value item in terms of cost for a customer. But if you get it wrong or it doesn't last, you'll be spending double the amount it cost you just to get access up there, and so making sure you use something that is good quality and that is going to last is just so important, and that job scarred me. So now it's like, right, if you think it's a bit of a weak point in terms of hold on to the panel, just put another couple of clips on. I don't mind spending extra 30p, 40p or whatever on that clip. I don't want to spend another £1,500 getting scaffolding up to this because it's all falling off. Because that would just be a killer. So just to take you back to PestFix as a company and just to box that part of it off, whereabouts PestFix based?
We are in Chichester now.
Yeah.
When I joined the company, we were in Littlehampton Marina, and about 3 years ago, we bought the building we're in now. It's 5 units. We started off in 3 of them. We've just expanded into the 4th. And there's another business in Unit 5. We'll see how long they get to stay. Literally, Unit 4 is just where the first 3 units are all knocked through. And so you've got offices above one. We've got a trade counter. We've got the academy where I do my teaching. Unit 4 is just warehouse, and it is predominantly full of mesh and clips. We because you had all the stuff going on in the Red Sea and where the Middle East kicked off and you couldn't get stuff through Suez Canal and so forth, we had some shipments that got stuck. So whereas we have a pretty steady flow of product coming in, and we'd got sort of 1 shipping container a month or something, we suddenly had about 6 arrive in about a 2-week period. It's like, there is nowhere to put this.
Yeah.
So we ended up renting a unit that we'd previously rented way back before I even joined the company at Littlehampton Marina, just to store mesh temporarily. until we could move into Unit 4. The company that was in there had to, finish off their lease.
Well, we had this with Sarah, didn't we, at Waxman, who do like the solar panels, inverters, and everything, and even something on, as again, I don't mean to kind of be negative about bird protection, but the value of the bird protection is quite low, but it still faces the same problems as like the high value items on solar panel installation, like the panels, inverter, rail, and everything it has, with shipping it in from other countries. It's very tricky.
Without getting political, we manufacture so little in this country now.
Yeah.
So everything is coming in, whether it be from China, India, Bangladesh, wherever. We buy stuff in from all over the world, and it's all coming in by it's large quantities, so it is predominantly sea freight. And it tickles me of when I joined PestFix, we used to get 2, maybe 3 20-foot shipping containers a year. One would be nets, one would be spikes, and then we might have another by the nets or spikes. And now we're averaging at least 1 40-foot container a month.
Yeah.
And it's just the sheer volume of products that are coming in is vast. And yeah, they're low value, but it's that sort of Tesco principle, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you only make £2 on a tin of beans, you've got to sell a lot of beans. And that's the thing, we're buying it in, I say cheaply, at a reasonable price, and we're just selling large quantities of it, which means actually we've got that purchasing power. We can get the prices as low as we can, and then we can then sell them on as affordably as possible.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word cheap because it gives the idea that it's a rubbish product, and it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, the mesh that we use, this stuff, years ago, there was a lot of black coated mesh on the market, and a lot of people were asking for this, and we're going, no, because many years ago, again, before I even joined the company, there was an issue with black coated mesh. The coating wasn't UV stabilised, so the coating went after about 4 months, and then it was just mild steel underneath, which then rusted through within about 6 months. So people were paying this extra money, scaffolders, and things, all of that stuff to put it up, and within a year, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So we made sure that it is galvanised steel underneath. Obviously, we actually can't steel galvanised; it's gone. But it's galvanised steel underneath, and it is UV stabilised on the outside, so it's going to last a lot longer than.
They're two essential parts for us, aren't they? Because it's all well and good, it looks great the day it goes up, but we need to ensure that it's going to stay there and be in reasonable condition for good length of time. The panel, the arrays might be up there 20 years. So this stuff's got to stand up to the weather, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, it has.
Can I? Yeah, I was going to say, right, sort of carnage there.
That'll be right there. It's fine. Yeah, that'll be fine.
I mean, I had solar panels put on my roof 2 years ago. Fuel prices were going up, and if I do it now, at least while I'm working, I can pay for them. And hopefully, I fully intend them to be on the roof and working. I hope they are by the time I retire.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be worrying about my electricity bills when I'm a pensioner. So I sort of did it as future proofing. So you want it to be lasting 20 years.
So the other one that you've got there then, so you've got some spikes there. These are drop spikes that help.
Yeah.
Could we have a
yes, if we can. I'll tell you what, you do it because I cause carnage.
It's like that's just a bad job of it. There you go.
Right, so these, I mean, they've got holes in them, which I'll say are misleading because we've just discussed we are not going to be drilling. You could, if you want to, use glue. Again, I wouldn't recommend that. And then these holes could be used to make glue rivets where the glue pops through and then push it out. Now, this is probably going to hurt on my legs, but if these were clay tiles, you sort of offer this up to your panel, and as you do, you push down. And
it forms the shape. Okay.
The curve of a tile in. So if you've got the pan tiles at the front or at the back of the panels, then something like this will be good because I push that. These will just follow the curve. If you've got a really wavy roof line, the mesh is quite difficult to because you want that L-shaped profile to it, and you're going to have a gap that the birds can push up and down. But even then, you might choose, because these are considerably more expensive per metre than those. And you just use the speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you just clip those on?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just show the camera that. So, yeah, okay. So I've not actually ever used these ones, but I have seen them, and so those all adjust. And like you say, if you've got you've got the main dish of the tile there, it kind of comes
Yeah.
round and then back up. These you can kind of adjust. Would you ever cut these so that
You could do if
so
you
that
wanted to.
top didn't stick
I'm
down?
fairly sure there is one system where these are fixed, in which
Right.
case you are going to have to
Cut it.
cut it.
Right.
So
Then you could use those speed clips to basically clip that on
Yeah.
to there, so you're not having to glue it or self-tapper it.
Yeah.
And I think that self-tappering side of things is actually quite a good discussion point, because it's a bit like using the wrong fixing system on a roof, and expecting warranties to last and the system to last the time that you expect it to. And when I see it's all over Facebook, there's all these companies offering very cheap bird proofing of the panels, because it wasn't done back in the feed-in tariff, and it wasn't done even when I started in my business, sort of during the quiet period of solar PV. It just wasn't ever really considered, and I'm guilty of that as well. And so there's a lot of systems out there that have none of this bird proofing in. And you see on Facebook a ladder up the side of a house, and then some Nike Air Max trainers on up round the outside of the panels, and just self-tappering straight into the panels. And let's face it, that's going to keep the bird protection on. But will it last 25 years? And does that invalidate some of the warranty with the panel?
Surely it has to. You were saying about the glue.
yeah.
You know, I wouldn't think that would.
No.
But screwing into them.
Put it this way, I look at a solar panel, certainly with where it's all integral, where it looks like a TV. And I think if I wanted to at Christmas, I might blue tack some tinsel onto my telly at home.
Yeah.
That's not going to invalidate. If I was feeling a little bit aggressive, I might glue it on. There's no way that should invalidate warranty. There's no way I'm going to screw anything into the frame of an electrical appliance. As soon as you start putting metal into it, you're messing with the integrity of the product.
Yeah.
Gluing something on, I don't think should, but from experience, I've actually had customers that phone me up and they say, I bought this system from you 3 years ago and you told me it didn't invalidate warranty. But I've now had a problem with my solar panel installer. I've had a problem with the panel. I've called out the installer. They've come to repair it and they've told me that it has invalidated warranty. It absolutely doesn't. It's, the pin and disc system. And then she lets slip the name of the company that did it, and they buy 150 of those systems from us a month. How are they telling you it invalidates the warranty? It's just that sort of sharp practice. So I said, right, well, I don't want to get stuck in the middle here, because I wanted to help the lady, because, nice lady, and I told her the truth. And then, I also didn't want to hack off a customer that was spending a lot of money with it. I just sort of said, well, rather than saying you heard it from me, one of your friends had their solar panels installed, and they had put this system on, which is why you came to me. And I just got a little email from her about a month or so later. Yes, they've agreed it hasn't invalidated warranty. Thank you very much. So some of the installers are a little bit sketchy like that. I'm sorry. But you find that in any industry. There's always somebody that's going to try and get out of there.
Or they pass the buck wherever you can. That's just the way it goes. And, that can be from... Well, we've seen it before where a power supply is installed the wrong way around, where they put AC in the DC side, and it causes an issue with it. And the default approach is we'll just send it back to the wholesaler and say it came broke. That's like the integrity in the supply chain, I guess, isn't it? It's relying on us as contractors to tell the truth in that situation. But going back to the self-tappers into the frames, I think there's a few angles there. You've got the different metals together with the frame of the panel and the screw itself. And then there's the wind loading. Obviously, you've put a hole in the frame. Is that going to cause some sort of effect where it might be flexing more than it otherwise would? It's maybe stretching what could happen, but it's not impossible, is it? And you're bringing that into play when if you don't put a hole in it, it's never going to be a thing, is it?
To be honest, it's easier as well to use like the speed clips. The thing is, I think a mixture of it is getting around a problem that became a problem when you couldn't use the pin and disc, because the flanges on the back of the panels, they'd only maybe have like the return flange on the top and bottom and not along the sides. So you wouldn't, there's no return bit of metal to clip the pin and disc onto. So then people are like, well, what do we do here? So, and those speed clips probably were around, like, I don't know how long they've been out now, but they're relatively new in terms of what I've seen. And it's that education of what other things are out there. And if someone's got a van with, a box of black self-tappers, they maybe think, I'll just self-tap it up the side of here because what other option have I got? And there's probably a bit of a crossover between the solution coming out and trying to get around the problem where the manufacturers have just decided to remove that flange up the side or on all the sides. And it becomes very difficult. But now that there's those out there, I don't think there's any excuse for doing that.
That's a good point you've made there, because I'm fresh to this, so I'm just seeing it as well. The speed clips exist. Why would somebody even self-tap? But going back to when you've been in this, and that maybe wasn't an option, they didn't exist at the time, and people get into the habit of self-tapping these on, and it's just what they do.
Yeah.
And they carry on doing it, and they don't. They don't see these other options. They don't try them.
And I guess there'd also be an issue possibly, and again it goes to time versus material costs. 150 self-tappers is probably a lot cheaper than 150 speed clips. But then I'd argue, how long does it take to put those self-tappers on as well?
Yeah. And that's not even bringing into the conversation about the risk of the invalidating the warranty, cracking the glass, especially if you're using like an impact driver and it's hammering.
For Dugger-Duggers.
We all know that, glass is pretty strong on top, but it's when you hit the corners and things like that it shatters. And so you've got those are extra conversations. And to be honest, if everyone just used something like the speed clip, then pricing would be fairly similar across the board. I think it's an education piece, and hopefully there's people watching this that don't know about the speed clips that can actually go, right, I'm going to put my self-tappers away and I'm going to start using those instead.
Yeah, I think you do that, don't you, down at PestFix? Not so much with solar systems in the academy. You are giving that education for other areas around pest control. So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you, is kind of what you see more widely around this, with pests.
Well, because, as I say, when I started, we were already a full service company, but we had this reputation as bird specialists. And spending 3 years in a very small office with a man who had previously done bird installations, birds became my passion. In fact, PestFix are a member of the British Pest Control Association and the National Pest Technicians Association, BPCA and the MPTA. And the BPCA have some what they call special interest groups, which are the industry experts, one of which is Birdwise, and I'm on that committee, so that group. So if you have a problem with birds, you can phone your supplier and they might not be able to help you. Then you phone the BPCA, hopefully they can help you. But if they can't, if the person on the phone at the BPCA can't, then they'll go through to Birdwise, and the rest of us will get a text like, oh, okay, have you considered this? So birds are very much my passion. They are the course I enjoy teaching. I have to do 3 bird control courses. A practical, which is geared at sort of netting installation and spiking, actually for technicians. I do complete bird control, which is geared towards surveyors. To be honest, if you're a sole trader and you do any kind of bird proofing, that's a good course to do as well, because it teaches you what to look at all the way through. And then I do the advanced bird control, which is starting to look at pricing up really big jobs, things like regional distribution centres and things like York Minster. But also doing things like shock trap, which is a very expensive system. It's fantastic, it's expensive. And when you're new in business, some people are fearless and they start their businesses and they've got all these dreams and aspirations and they've got the courage to follow them through. And other people, they might have come out of a bigger corporation and they see their benefit is as a one-man band, they're cheaper because they're not paying for a corporate head office and an HR team and all of that sort of thing. So their benefit is they're cheaper and they will look at doing everything on a budget. And it's great, they're solid, they know their stuff, but they're my customer won't pay for that. Fine, they might. So teaching things like shock track and that, as I say, it's a great system. There's a hands-on element with that. And it's just giving people the confidence to learn the system, sell it, install it, know more about it. And it's just, I always say there's a whole box of tools available. Yeah. You need to know what's available. If you didn't know that there's a specialist tool for that, you might go, well, I can force it with my hammer and my hammer will do everything. You'll find a way around it. But I didn't know that tool existed.
That's one of the reasons I'm asking that question, because we've had a job where panels were put up, and then subsequently bird guard was added because some pigeons had nested under. This is going back maybe 10 years. And we've been quite recently to add battery storage onto that job, and the roof's full of pigeons. So we've got the protection, there's no birds going under, but the customer's convinced that these pigeons remembered nesting under there at some stage and have like passed it down generations, and they keep coming back. All the neighbouring roofs have got nothing on. So it's like, do we need to take an education piece ourselves as installers to have that knowledge about birds' behaviours and such?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, and it's one of the reasons I have solar panels on my house, pigeons are always going to go on the south side of the roof. They're two places. On the ridge, because all birds, if they're high up, they're safe from predation. Height is might when it comes to birds. So on the ridge, they know that they're not going to get attacked from something that's up above them. They're going to go as high up on the building as they can to your ridge lines, your parapets and stuff like that. And on a south-facing slope, because it's sunnier, which is why generally where you put panels on a roof, on the south-facing side, so they are used to sort of sunbaking, if you like, on that surface. So now, if they've been sitting on your south-facing roof and you put panels on, they want to sit on those panels. You've still got the same angle. If you've got a really steep roof, like 45 degrees or above, they can't. But it's a stretch, you know. It's the same as if you're standing on the side of a hill. You're like, this is uncomfortable. If you're on a gentle slope, you're quite comfortable there.
Yeah.
So if you've got really steep roof, then they're less likely to be poaching. But if it's lovely and sunny, they might. But if you've got a nice 30-degree pitch like mine, and then you put panels on top, you've still got that same angle. And those panels, God, they're even warmer now, aren't they? They're fantastic. And then the other thing with pigeons is they don't have waterproof feathers. So if it's raining, they need to tuck under. Seagulls, they're waterproof. So they don't need to tuck under things. They will happily sit, you know, on a big flat roof. They might get a bit of protection from wind. They're not worried about staying dry. As soon as it rains, pigeons want to get under things. And whether that be under your roof tiles, actually into your loft space, your roof space, or under the panels. Of course, yes, they will remember that they were sat there earlier on today. Oh, it's bedtime now, I'll just tuck under.
Yeah.
So there is some habit forming there. If you're doing a new installation and there's birds on there, you definitely need to be pushing through proofing, bird proofing, because otherwise they're going to have a problem massively. And if they can't get under, then they might start looking for other places nearby, because as well as being south facing, well, why are they on that roof? And it will generally be there's a food or water source nearby. And where I live, to say, on a floodplain, I'm one door away from a stream or a brook or a rife, officially a rife. So there's plenty of water. And I live in a cul-de-sac of obsessive bird feeders. If I look out of any window in my house, I can see at least 20 bird feeding devices, whether it's front garden, back garden, everyone's got them. So of course they're being fed. So if they say, well, this is a nice roof, there's food, there's water, and they put those panels there, they put some mesh. Where else can I go overnight time? I can still sit on the panels during the day. Where can I go overnight time? And you might find then that there's a bit of fascia board missing and they'll get in that way. Or a gap in your soffit, or a loose tile. Anything that you don't realise is there. And I know where I used to live, there was a block of flats just like 3 or 4 doors down. And I looked up one morning and I saw a little bit of fascia board was missing at the end of the eaves, and I thought, oh, I wonder if there'll be any birds in there. The next time I looked, there were 3 pigeons poking their head out, and I mean, there's a gap no bigger than this.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the pest controller that ultimately went and dealt with it, and it was about 2 years later. I've moved away since, but so I said, oh, down your old road the other. Yeah, they're in those flats. And how many did you pull out? 75 birds.
Well, man, heck.
They will squeeze in, and of course, when one dies, push out of the way, and another one moves in. They breed. So yeah, if there is a space where they can get into your roof, I mean, obviously that's not so much your concern, people, you know, the birds getting into the loft space and so forth. But by taking away a bit of habitat, then potentially they're going to look elsewhere. All you're doing is displacing them. They're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go as close as possible because they know their food source is there. They know their mates are there. So don't want to move.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding to with the question, that we're stopping them damaging the arrays we're fitting, but we're maybe just moving the problem, and maybe there's a better way of dealing. I don't know, is there a way that you can move pigeons on altogether? There probably isn't.
Not really. And the thing that, you know, there are old school, they would be shot. So you have to remember, all birds, their nests and their eggs are protected. Okay, wildlife and countryside, actually, you can't just randomly.
Just any bird.
Every bird in
Right.
the UK, every British bird is protected, and its nest and its eggs.
Right.
But there is something called general license, and you've been looking at GL41, which is a license for public health. Now, the licenses change every year, so you always need to check that you're current. And at the moment, the license was produced at the beginning of 24, it runs up to the end of 25. So what I'm saying is good for 24 and 25. And that is, as long as you have taken all non-lethal measures or considered all non-lethal measures first, you are allowed to use lethal controls to control feral pigeons if they are a risk to public health and public safety. Now, if you've got pigeons under your roof, the biggest risk, there's loads of diseases and stuff like that, but the biggest risk is actually them dislodging the wires and causing a fire. Now, this is where it gets tricky. If it burns down your house, that's not a risk to public health. Burns down your neighbour's house, then it is. So
if you're a detached property, you probably can't.
you can't say, well, it's public safety because it's only your property that's affected. But if you're terraced or semi, I'm semi. But fortunately, it's the same. I'll put the measure anyway. So in that case, you are allowed to use lethal control. But I wouldn't be telling you guys to do it. I to get the pest control to do that because you don't want to be walking around with shotguns and stuff.
Sounds like,
especially when you've got the panels there as well.
Yes.
and some annoying work colleagues. The temptation might be a little too high.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of leads me on to what was one of my next questions was, why are we bothered about these birds nesting? Is there? Let's have a little chat about what are the actual problems with them actually being under those panels. How are we trying to remove the problems?
Have you ever been in a property where you've got something living in the roof space?
Yes.
Noisy, isn't it?
Very. That is definitely one of the main downsides.
So straight away, I mean, the house I live in now and the house I had before, literally about a month after I started at PestFix, I got birds on the roof of my house. I'm like, well, sneak them in or something.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got massive animals up there stomping.
Yeah.
I've got two little starlings,
Mm.
and the racket they were making, you'd think it was a much bigger. So first of all, there's the noise. We need to sleep for our mental health, our physical health. We need to sleep, and that's going to be disruptive. Obviously you've got the big risk of anything under your panels, not just birds, big squirrels as well.
I was going to say
I've
squirrels.
had a squirrel problem. Yeah.
Squirrels love chewing electrical cables. They absolutely love it. And especially now, I don't know as much about the stuff you're using, but if you're doing any of the electric cars, a lot of the wiring looms in those are made from oil, whereas it used to be...
Hey mate, you alright?
I have a delivery for you.
Okay, so we've had a little commercial break because we're filming this podcast during the day, and one consideration we didn't make, or I didn't make, was that we have deliveries turning up to the unit. So we are dropping right back into the conversation with Elaine about problems with birds nesting. So we're just chatting about the noise that you have, and I know this noise because not related to the solar panels, but when I moved to York, we bought a property and we had squirrels nesting in the loft space, and it sounded like the ceiling was going to come down.
God, yeah, they're huge. And you actually look at a squirrel, it weighs less than a kilo. How does it make that much racket? But if you start with squirrels, because they're going to get under solar panels as well. And as I was saying, I know with new electric cars, certainly, and I don't know if it's the case with the stuff you're installing as well, but when you buy anything electrical, obviously it's insulated. And that used to be insulated with a sort of plastic, for want of a better term, which used to come from a petrochemical, which we don't use anymore because we don't want to be using fossil fuels. Hence, all of this. So now those plastic coatings are being made with either soy or peanut oil.
Oh no.
Can we see why this might be an issue?
Yeah.
So certainly like with the cars, the amount of problems we're getting where people have got brand new Teslas and the wiring looms being chewed out by rats. And I should imagine you're going to be getting a similar sort of thing. Squirrels love electrical cables anyway, even the old ones. They do love to chew and they need to gnaw all the time. So they're always looking at something to chew. So if you get a squirrel under there, stuff the noise, it's going to be chewing through your cables. That's going to A, cause a failure of your system, B, house fire.
We see it's the age old. It's been a problem as long as electrics have been going into houses, hasn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
With around like rats and mice chewing cables. The amount of times you see like a 1 meter length of twin and earth cable that has literally been stripped back to the copper.
Yeah.
And there's, you think, how is this still live?
They don't like chewing metal, and they really don't like chewing copper. It causes like a short in their teeth.
Right.
I've seen a few of them get some nasty shots inside distribution boards and consumer units where they've been gnawing away and then the tails ended up in slightly the wrong place and they've become a conductor.
Yeah.
And then years later, when the poor electrician's going in to do their job, you have that skeleton in there from the whatever rodent it was.
Yeah.
So obviously, any animal, if it's bobbing around under your panel, then you've got that risk of dislodging and fire. When they're actually up there, all animals defecate.
That's a good word.
Foul, whatever you want to use it. And obviously, squirrel poo has got pathogens in it as well. Pigeons, the nature of their fouling, there's about 50 different pathogens you'll find in there most of the time, including what you'll find where you've got a large number of pigeons. When they preen, because they're always grooming, they have like a silica-based substance in their feathers. So as they're preening, it comes off. If we say it's like pigeon dandruff, you kind of get the gist. It's not a pathogen, but it's a physical irritant. And if you inhale that, that's what causes extrinsic allergic alveolitis.
Well, that's a good word.
Pigeon fanciers lung, you might know it as.
Right, okay.
So you know the guys that used to keep pigeons and, I've got a friend whose dad does it and, literally goes and kisses them goodnight and tucks them up. He's suffering from this now and he's currently dragging around a tank full of oxygen, but he still won't wear a mask when he puts the pigeons to bed.
Is that a similar sort of thing as silica dust then from building?
Very,
Because that's
very
a big
similar.
emerging thing now. We've
Yeah.
had asbestos of like the 70s and 80s.
And all of that. It's not a pathogen that's getting down there, it's a physical irritant.
Right.
And once it's in there, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, what I will say is if you've ever popped your head into your loft at home and you found some birds up there, and don't worry, that kind of level of exposure isn't going to be a problem. But if you're cleaning out under solar panels on a regular basis or anything where you're cleaning up, then you need to be masked. And you also need to consider that's just what's in the droppings. That's a mechanical irritant. If you're living up there, they're also dying up there. And then you start getting secondary infestations. I went out last week with a pest controller and beautiful hotel that got maggots dropping through the ceiling.
Oh,
Grim.
yeah.
And it was something had died in the loft space. Flies had found it. It was flies' will. Anything that dies, a fly will find it, a blowfly. They'd come and laid their eggs on the wet residue, as we refer to it. And then we got maggots. Now, also, give it a few more days. Maybe with the cold weather, it might have stopped it or certainly slowed it down. But the maggots were wriggling around and then they started dropping through the tiled ceiling.
I hope no one's listening to this eating the Weetabix.
Yes, that is the problem. Doing pest control, you become completely sensitised to it. And you'll be talking to other pest controllers and you'll be talking about, poo, maggots, dead, decay, and other people are just going green and looking away. It's not great. So all the time they're alive, they are fouling, bobbing around, risking fire and making a hell of a racket. When their mates start dying, just because they could still be breeding under there. So just because you had one and it's dead doesn't mean that's the end of the problem, because there might have been chicks and so forth. So then you've got the dead body and the pathogens that come with that, and the flies, the secondary infestation there. And you also get, if you've got a large number, even if you haven't got a large number, if you've got pigeons in the nest, you get rid of the bird, leave the nesting material behind. Well, there'll be insects living in that nest.
Right.
Bird mites in particular, strange enough, poultry mites, even though it's not chickens, but that particular mite's known as a red poultry mite. You'll find that in a lot of birds' nests. And then they feed on warm-blooded animals. So they're what we call ectoparasites. They live away from the host, so they live close. They're not actually living on the body of the pigeon. They're going to be living in its nesting material. And then when the pigeon's out there, it comes in, feeds, goes back into the nest.
Right.
When the pigeon goes, it's now looking for another warm-bodied animal.
Yeah, which might be your
Will
friendly
be.
solar installer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be the people in the house.
Oh, right.
More likely to be the people in the house. And again, I mean, when I bought my house, it was a proper house of horrors. It really needed fixing up. And I spotted the birds in the summer, waited for them to fledge, got rid of that, brilliant. And then I was, yeah, now I've got bird mites. And I could literally see them coming down the side of the wall in my bedroom. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Fortunately, as a pest controller, I knew what they were.
Yeah.
I could treat the infestation in the room. I'm not keen on going in my loft because
Mm.
if I fall through, I live on my own. So yes.
Yeah.
Where's Elaine today?
I don't think any of us are keen on getting in lofts. I have to do a good job and don't like it. It's horrible.
So if we nail down then, so the problems as I see it, and you jumping back, if you agree with these in your experience, we're doing solar installs. So for me, it's the noise. We've discussed the noise. It's the risk to the cabling inside or underneath the panels, and potentially in the loft if they're going into the loft and they've got access in there somehow. There's the noise of them moving around, but there's also like this. Yeah, that's it. The cooing and everything like that. Have you come across many jobs where you've got pigeons or anything nesting?
Yeah, we have. There was one up on the coast near Whitby quite recently, actually. Other installers had fitted it. I hadn't been in that long, a couple of years, and there'd been pigeons nesting underneath. And you've made a couple of really interesting points along the rest of it, Eileen, around the nesting of the birds and not being able to disturb them when they are hosting eggs in those nests. And also kind of the health and safety aspect for us as installers coming across this stuff retrospectively. So it's quite easy when you're going to do a new system. The roof will be clean. You could put your netting on. You know, it's no real issue. But going back to an array that's had birds under it, are we the right people to clear that waste away, or should we be passing it on to experts like pest control to do that work?
I would say if you can, but the problem is with everything, there'll be people that I can do this, I can do that, I can do that, and it's every time you involve another new service, it puts up the cost and so forth. And then the customer, I don't really want to, and I would say you're better off if you're going to be doing it, make sure you've had some training in it. Make sure you've got the right PPE. As you say, you see these pictures of people in there, and they're trainers and they're make sure you've got the right equipment, and also what you're disposing of. If you're disposing of dead birds, any kind of nesting material, guano, this is foul waste. It's waste. It's commercial waste, and you can't just chuck it in your bin. It needs to be disposed of properly. So you need to make sure you've got your right waste contractors or waste transport certificate.
Yeah.
If you're not a registered waste transporter, then you've got a whole lot of issues. And I would say for you guys, this then starts making there's a lot of paperwork. So yeah, this possibly is something you should be looking at getting a pest controller in.
So my concern is that the health and safety of the installers doing it, they're actually my kids as well, so I don't want them to get ill for two reasons. But also it's understanding how we would know that there's maybe eggs in those nests, because they're under the solar panels. You know, we're not experts in wildlife, and the only way we could see that would be to take a panel. Is lifting a panel enough of a disturbance for you to get in trouble, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Right. So with pigeons, as I say, because they're the bird we care about the least, that said, we can't just ride roughshod over the law. You could probably get away with more when it comes to moving panels and disturbing them. They don't have a specific nesting season. And if you're doing it for health and safety reasons, then you're absolutely fine to take them out and destroy those nests and eggs. As long as you know, yes, it is a genuine public health and safety, or it's a health and safety issue because of the risk to the roof, the fire and so forth, you can justify it under GL 41. You've looked at non-lethal means. If you could scoop the nest out and put it somewhere else for it to carry on its life, that's fine. Some people might ask you to do that. It's going to be a lot of work because generally a nest is 3 twigs and some fluff.
Very, very
You're going to destroy it getting it out. So yeah, you're probably going to be okay. But I'd hate for anyone to be standing up in the dark going, well, you ain't a pesticide, I can do it.
Yeah.
So it's always that. Download a copy of GL 41 and say, have I considered all non-lethal options? Well, yeah, I'm not intentionally killing these birds. I'm going to take them out from where they are because their nest is a hazard. I can move the nest without killing the eggs. And you might find there aren't any under there. What you do need to be careful of is the babies, the squabs, because they are very difficult to spot. So you'll spot a big adult pigeon, bobbing around, cooing away. You can scoop that out and you go, right, I've got that nest out, fine. If you trap a squab under there, and you've sealed up your net, you're brilliant, all done. You've now trapped a bird under there, and it's probably going to die because if you've done a really good job to stop birds getting in, well, they also can't get out to feed. So if they're going to die of starvation, we've now got an animal welfare issue. So you need to make sure if you are removing anything, you're removing everything. And the squabs are very difficult to get out. What I do, or what I sort of teach when it comes to panel proofing, if it's an existing installation, is I make like a little cat flap at the side and literally do like a Wile E. Coyote trail of seed. So if there's anything under there, they can get out.
Right, okay.
Because they'll just push the flap out, they'll see the food, push their way out, and then the flap drops down, they can't get back in, and then you can go back a couple of days later and seal that off when you know that there's nothing.
I guess that's always a possibility, because it could be that a tile's slightly lifted somewhere and it's kind of scuttled under there while you're doing what you're doing and you've not noticed it, and it could creep back out. And this is like a whole other level of stuff we need to be aware of. It seems to ever grow, this list, Sam, of stuff we need to be aware of and know about. And it's the responsibility of us then, of maybe things we did not fully appreciating and understanding. I think electricians are among the worst for dabbling in loads of different areas, be it accounting, be it pest control, whatever. We like to have a go at everything and then moan when anybody does what we do.
Yeah.
There's a bit of honesty needed here from us, I think.
There is. I mean, one pest control issue that I had when I was working for the employer I used to work for, and that was based on the coast, was we were called to a job. We didn't install the panels, but we had the inverter had gone into a fault, the weren't generating, so they got scaffolding up because it was definitely a panel problem. Got up there, and I kid you not, the amount of mess around, because the cables hadn't been secure, so the plug is the heaviest part. The cables in between the panels were drooping down from the panels where they connect, and the amount of mess, like bird mess, that had encrusted itself around the MC4 connector, and it hardened, and it just kept adding it out because it was running down the cables effectively. We should put a warning on this podcast not to have to eat breakfast on.
We'll get it on the thumbnail.
But basically, it had encrusted around it, but the centre of it was still damp because it had encrusted around it, had created like a hard shell, but it had locked all that moisture in, and that had got into the MC4 connector.
So just top tip, if you ever are having to deal with something like that, damp is good when it comes to the droppings, because if it's dry and you start chipping away, you're creating the dust, and that's going to be going up to the environment. And there's the dust from pigeon fouling in particular, it's the dangerous part. So if you've got like a big old, 3-inch layer or 4-inch layer, we say you should lightly spray it until it's damp on the top, scoop off that wet layer, spray again, scoop it off. And you always want to be actually scooping away damp material.
Yeah.
Once it's dry, that's when it's at its most dangerous. Obviously, we think when it's wet, but that's the safest time for you to handle it. Obviously, gloves, masks, suits. One thing I will say, just with birds as well, and this is something that I have seagulls nesting on it's technically my neighbour's roof. I live in a pair of semis. So my roof line goes this way, his goes that way, and right at the very apex, seagulls have nested. And the chicks keep going into the valley between our two roofs and falling down onto my conservatory. My concern is I've got a roof like this and I've got panels sitting proud of it. That little angle between the two, that's like perfect nesting place for seagulls. I'll say that it's nice and high. They're not worried about tucking under. If you ever go onto a roof and there's seagulls and it looks like they're nesting, step away. You absolutely cannot do anything until the end of the nesting season. They are protected way more than pigeons. You will need to apply to Natural England for a licence, and you will need to jump through hoops. And those hoops are high, tiny, and they're on fire. So I would say on that, step away until the end of the nesting season.
Seagulls are badass as well. You don't want
they
them
will also attack you. I mean, for your own health and safety, step away.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily renewables related, but just again, work for that same company. We were fitting an outside vent or something, and it was on like a balcony, and there was seagull nest. I think it was on like just above us or something. It wasn't in the same property. It was like some flats, and the guy I was working for gave me this. It was like a lump of it was conduit or something like that, metal conduit. So you'll need this. I thought, we're only putting a fan in. These seagulls were beelining for us. He went, I'm just going to do this fan. I want you to wave that just to stop them attacking us. And you'd see it come swooping round. And it never got really close because I was just like waving this to kind of scare it off. But it was swooping, and I'd be like, "It's coming, it's coming." He'd be like, "Yeah, just wave it, it's fine." And he'd be there putting the grill on. I'm like, "Are you done?" But they're big. When you get up next to them, they're big, aren't they?
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you said about so they have got their own specific legislation that you can't mess around with them.
It's more there under the General Wildlife and Countryside Act. There's specific legislation that makes it a little bit more relaxed on pigeons.
Right. Okay.
Okay, seagulls have got the same level of protection as, for example, peregrine falcon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, you can apply, but as I say, the licensing process is long, arduous, and extremely difficult. And living where we are, I'm not so sure. I saw quite a few gulls up in York this morning, but where we are down on the south coast, why is it a problem? Milton Keynes, nowhere near the sea, it's got 40,000 pairs of nesting gulls. How has this happened? But where the gulls aren't is on cliff tops where they should be. And they do these nature surveys every year of where the birds are and how many there are and what breeding and so forth. And whilst there's lots in the towns and centres, there aren't so many by the coast. And huge numbers died last year through avian flu, and in fact the last couple of years. And so whilst we look and go, yeah, they're really annoying, there's lots of people going, many gulls this year. They don't contact us and go, we haven't got any pests, can you send some?
Yeah.
So but they are very protected, and to be honest, they're also so aggressive. If you're trying to work up there, I mean, I know one guy who had to go and he had to clear a drain that had blocked. It was causing water to go into a building through where the electrical cables were. So the distribution board was darky.
Right.
So he managed to get special compensation. He could dispensation rather. He could go and move this one nest, and he took his stepson up. He didn't get on very well with his stepson with a bag of chips.
Right.
So while he was over there doing what he needed to be, his stepson was there.
Bait.
Yes. And I was like, oh. And he's like, sorry, I'm not with her anymore. There's a reason for that. So yeah, you generally when you're doing anything with seagulls, especially unless it's a two-man job, and one of them is just bait, waving around an umbrella or whatever to stop them attacking the worker. Yeah.
I'm so glad we've gone this way around with this conversation, because I think.
So we're going to leave you on that cliff edge, wondering what Sam thinks, and we'll pick up with this next week in part 2. Elaine was good enough to give us 2 hours of her time, so we've got another very, very in-depth episode coming next week, following along from our discussion you've seen today. Massive apologies from me to Elaine, because I've just seen that I called her Eileen through the course of the first episode, and that is just my dyslexia and stupidity coming out in the conversation. So yeah, apologies on that one, but we'll come back next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, share it across your social media so other people can find it and hopefully enjoy it the same as you. And if you've got any comments or questions, please do drop them in below, message on social media, however you want to do it. We love the engagement around these podcasts, so please do get involved. And otherwise, we'll see you next week for part 2.